So Ohio State, big win over Indiana. I think that we expected this game to be blown out. It was not particularly close at any point in the game. Ohio State was really balanced offensively, 322 through the air, 340 running the ball. They averaged 9.1 yards per play. They averaged almost 8 yards per rush. Like, this is what we wanted to see. You know, can you bounce back? Can you be consistent? There was a little bit of weather in there. So for all the folks who said Ohio State's going to be checking their weather app, the narrative has been busted. And I put out a tweet thread just to talk about that too, because they really only had in the last couple of years one bad game in the weather is the Northwestern game. Their biggest issues to me have been, can they run it with consistency and can they stop the run? We can talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah.
The average gain on first down for Ohio State was 11.1 yards, which is a ridiculous thing to think. Like, it's first down, they're basically getting another first down right after that. And they ran for almost 10 yards run on first downs, which is where you want to be. Like, can you keep yourself on schedule running the football? The offensive issue to me is this one. They were 1 of 7 on power rushes, which are runs of 2 yards or less to convert for a first down or a touchdown. And we saw a couple of those situations where they wanted to bring it in tight and they wanted to try to run it downhill. And Indiana had a great game plan. It's basically what everybody else has done in those exact situations. They said, screw it, we're going to bring it in tight too. And we are just going to tell our guys to penetrate. It doesn't matter where you're going, just create chaos in the pile. I think it's a great opportunity for evolution for Ohio State. CJ Stroud has shown a willingness to run it these last couple of weeks. That's where you just scoot them right there over the edge and take the free yards. I'm sure Ryan Day has a solution. The defense was lights out, and that's the story of the year for me with this Ohio State team. Is we've talked more about their offensive struggles than we have about anything on defense, and it was a totally different conversation from a year ago. But the one thing that gives me pause defensively for Ohio State is the way they defend the quarterback run. This is the only thing Indiana did with success. It was really the thing that Northwestern should have gone to more that they didn't. And I see why, because their quarterbacks are, I mean, they got 2 of those guys right now who probably won't play this week because they're banged up. All that to say, that is the one issue that puts my antennas up for Ohio State. As you evaluate this team and their performance against Indiana, albeit not a great football team that they went against, what do you make of it?
So I'll start on the offensive side of the ball and kind of work from there. So I think obviously the explosion in the run game was huge, but something that gives me pause, and I don't know how bad or how serious Mayan Williams' injury was, but Travion Henderson did not dress. They're very, very thin, right? They showed some explosion.
It's more than thin.
Yeah, it's nuts, right?
Yeah.
I made this point last night on our show, and I'm going to hit it again here for the Big Ten folks, because I think it's a valid one. Ohio State has done a great job of using the extension of the run game, receiver screens in the past years as points of it. Teams like Penn State took advantage of that, took that away, right?
Yeah.
So to me, watching Ohio State's passing game, and again, I haven't had a ton of opportunity to get like the all 22 and really break down like 3 or 4 games of them and look at this. But the one thing that I haven't seen a ton of just watching football games again from Ohio State is possession passing game. Their passing game is very vertical. A lot of outside throws, a lot of up the seams, a lot of crossers, deep crossers, posts. They're very, very vertical, and it's hard not to be with the type of burners they have. But I think when you look at the team and what they have from an injury standpoint, from what they need to be able to do to possess the football, they can't be they can't put their defense out there for 35, 40 minutes a game. They cannot do that, like, especially against a Michigan team who's going to ground and pound you for 40 minutes if you give them the opportunity.
They can't.
And then conversely, looking ahead, like a Georgia team is going to take big advantage of that, because that's what Georgia did to Tennessee, and you saw what happened there. And Tennessee is a very similar team, I think, relatively speaking, from a weapons side on the offensive side of the ball to Ohio State. So they need to figure out a way how to get some type of possession game. And to me, it's the quick game. You don't see a lot of slant flat concepts. You don't see a lot of snag concepts. You don't see a lot of horizontal stretch, spread the ball out, let's attack zone defense concepts from this Ohio State team. You see some crossers, you see some things like that. But I think there's an element of that and the screen game internally, the running back screen game, tight end screen game. Still use the receiver screen game, but you need to augment the run game in some way, shape, or form, especially with how inconsistent it's been for them. And now compound that with the fact that your 2 big workhorses are banged up finishing the year. So you really, to go into this Michigan game and do what you need to do, I think that's a big point of emphasis for Ohio State. And it should be, especially with the weapons they have outside. If they happen to get Jackson Smith and Jigba back, I don't know what that status is. That's a huge thing. Marvin Harrison Jr. obviously speaks for itself. There's a few other guys in there, Julian Fleming. They got players, right? You need to figure out a way to augment it. Conversely, flip that to the defensive side. I watched, that's the one side of the ball I made sure this weekend watching this game. Obviously, it's Indiana. It's not a great, not necessarily the best thing, but I wanted to watch their defense. I think Eichenberg's done a fantastic job of kind of driving the train at linebacker. He's awesome.
My God.
And the defensive front has been getting better and better and better. That is going to be their bell cow. If they can continue to do what they do. And to your point, you brought some great insight the last time we talked about how they're kind of living and dying. They're like, we can give up 7 explosives, but we're still going to get ours. If they can start limiting those explosives and still get theirs against these big dogs, that's going to be big. And I think that's going to come with consistency and confidence on the defensive side of the ball that they've been gaining here down the stretch. So this Ohio State team is very, very still, I think, one of the teams that can contend and really push Georgia and give them problems. But I think they need to solve a few of these little issues here that could end up, these little hairline fractures that could end up being big fractures if they don't get it fixed quick and put some stuff on tape that teams have to prepare for.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you there. And it's like, it's such a double edge because I'm trying to get used to living in this world of the aggression out of the defense. And like, they are totally okay with saying that we know we can get 4 sacks and 10 TFLs in a game, and we might give up a 44-yarder over our head. They they literally don't care because they believe more times than not, they are going to create the negative plays that change the game. And up to this point, they have proven that that's exactly what they'll do. I mean, leaps and bounds, they're much better. The scoring defense, the yards per game, like all of that stuff. So it's so unnerving to watch because you're like, man, like you wish it never went over their head, but it's the same concept that gets them those crazy negative plays. Going back to the offense, the point that you made about the screen game and what they need to do, I'm totally on board with. And I believe Ryan Day has a package that is ready to roll because we've seen a couple of tight end screens now. They have put wide receivers in the backfield and they've run swing passes to them. And they've tried to get the football on edges against Penn State. Awful matchup because that secondary is so physical. They eliminated all those plays. And so I believe that this is an Ohio State team that needs to get better blocking on the edges. Like they need to hold up out there. But Ryan he's sprinkled just enough to make us believe that there's a full package he's ready to unleash. The question is, when do you do it? Number 2, when you do it, can you execute it properly?
Right. And that's where I said, I think just the basic, go back to the quick game, 3-step. Like very rarely do you see CJ, he's dropping back, he's working off action, or he's kicking those things out, right? You very rarely see he's getting pressure. Like another way to augment that outside of the screen game to me is possession, quick passing game, right? And oftentimes they're seeing zone. Not a lot of teams are saying, hey, we're going to come out man up against Ohio State. So with those zones, you can attack that from a horizontal stretch, right? What I mean by horizontal stretch is you put bodies in the gaps of the zone defense and force people to make decisions, right? And you do it in a manner where 5-8 yards tops, and you will allow CJ to catch, throw, get the ball out there in space and allow your receivers to get yacked because you have special guys, right? I think it's a way where they can now start augmenting that, take the pressure off of CJ from having to drop back and throw the vertical passing game so much. And I think it's only going to help set up a guy like Marvin Harrison Jr. for explosives then off of that, where you can run slants and then you go slant and go, because he's a very, very talented craftsman, for lack of a better term, at the position, mature beyond his years in terms of that. So that's a whole nother element of the game that I think they can start dabbling in more often and start, like I said, augmenting that run game, because it's something they put an emphasis on. And we've talked about that. They've emphasized running the football this year more so than they have in previous years. But again, injuries is something to really pay attention to. And you got to figure out ways to balance it out.
I'm totally there with you. And it'll be, I mean, this last stretch run for them. Obviously, they got Maryland, but Michigan game is what everybody's looking toward. They're going to have to be all hands on deck in terms of their play diversity, in terms of the play calling, and then actually the players that are available in the execution to get it done.
And CJ Stroud running the football too. CJ Stroud running the football, like you said,
and he looks like a willing participant now, and that is, it's changed my whole perspective on him as a player. His stock is rising, and I don't know if we were going to say that at this point in the year because it was already so high, but that's important. Before we get off of this game, I just wanted to make mention of Cameron Babb. He had a touchdown late in the game. It was his first career reception. It was his first career touchdown. This is a guy who has endured 4 ACL tears, and he's been a multi-time captain at the Ohio State University. He's a guy who's wearing the Black O jersey. It's the number 0, but it signifies like the leader of their program. And I'll say this much on it. If it was me, I wouldn't have been out there. I would not have endured what he has gone through. I would not have weathered that storm to be in that situation. And I thought that Gus and Joel on the game broadcast did a phenomenal job of really celebrating that moment and letting people know why that was such a big deal. I think that people around college football have also done a great job of telling that story. And this is why we love the sport. And this is why we talk about it so much, is outside of the X's and O's, these things happen. But I just wanted to lob it up to you. When you saw that moment, what did that make you feel?
Well, like you said, you touched on it. And the biggest thing for me was watching his teammates' reaction, right?
Yeah.
Like you're looking at a bunch of guys who oftentimes when you're in that situation and you're in the training room, you feel very isolated. You're not lifting with the team. So he obviously found a way to still touch people on a consistent basis, which is really hard to do in that position. And you and I can talk about this because we've been there. We've been in that locker room setting. And to see the reaction of his teammates, to me, like you hit on all the great points, but to me, the reaction of his teammates said it all. And as a guy who's been in a locker room, seen people endure those types of things, watch people do some pretty incredible things while hurt, injured, bouncing back, whatever. Utmost respect for a guy like that, to your point. Like, I don't know if I could have weathered those storms either. And that's where, for him, great moment, great college football moment. And again, was really cool to see the way his teammates reacted.
Totally there. It's special, man. And again, it's the reason why we tune into games every Saturday. It's like you cannot replicate what college football gives you.